All right, so the Lightning Network is probably something you've maybe heard of, maybe you haven't. If you're into cryptocurrency, you probably know all about it. And today we're going to dive into it with the founder of Voltage. Graham, great to have you on the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So TechPath kind of jumps into the topics of cryptocurrency. We go into AI, EV, go all over the space in terms of robotics, kind of this new age of technology. And fintech is one of I would say, one of the biggest topics that we've been covering here recently. Just the number of companies we've had, M1 on, we've had the guys over at Algorand, which is a blockchain tech, and the guys over at Voyager, which is a platform. So I wanted to learn more about the Lightning Network because just through our exploration of where Bitcoin and cryptocurrency payments are going, the Lightning Network keeps coming up as kind of the infrastructure that everything's being built on. Explain to me a little bit about what Voltage does and how you guys connect all the dots.
Yeah, sure. So Voltage is a Bitcoin infrastructure provider, basically. So what that means is we provide a variety of services for both individuals and companies to incorporate Bitcoin into what they're doing much easier and much faster. So we have several services today of like Lightning Network node hosting, Bitcoin node hosting, and BTC Pay server hosting.
Right.
So through our platform, you're able to sign up and create your node in just a couple of minutes. And then once you have your node running, you can start incorporating its APIs into what you're already building. And so this really
Okay.
enables people to start incorporating Bitcoin into those like everyday applications much easier and much faster. It removes the complexities of having to know all of those low level details about the Bitcoin network, server maintenance, all of those things. We kind of take on that burden for you, and we just give you an API and say, here you go, start, interacting with it through your apps that, maybe weren't crypto enabled previously. And then we make it in a really seamless, easy way to bring that into your stores, your applications, whatever you're really building.
Yeah. So the potential there down in the future, how would this kind of compare and maybe in a way conflict to a certain extent? If I've got an app today where I'm just, traditionally accepting fiat payment, is this one of those things that integrates to the whole entire payment infrastructure, or am I going to have essentially kind of two channels? You've got one channel over here that might be utilizing something like a Plaid backend to do a payment, or maybe a Stripe, something of that nature was a typical credit card fiat, enabled. And then yours, how would that look in an app if I was wanting to enable Voltage on my app itself?
Yeah, sure. So we really the two methods are really kind of they're independent. So that I don't think they would do much crossover like on the back end because the protocols are just kind of completely different things between the traditional banking system and then the Bitcoin protocol on how
Right.
the peer-to-peer network that's behind it. So they would really exist in two different areas. But when you're incorporating into your app, you could very easily just select which route to take. As far as Voltage goes, is we would basically run the kind of the back end for you. So when you are servicing, someone to pay with Lightning or add Lightning support into whatever you're building, you could very easily, add that front end to it. And then what we host kind of the whole back end of your Lightning node and all of the complexities that go into that. And then you would just be hitting our API, and we would, take care of everything from there essentially.
Right. Right. Talk to me about micropayments in general and kind of where you see this might be going. Recent news with Breeze. We've seen the Breeze wallet and kind of their evolution of trying to help support podcasters with Satoshi, instantaneous payments. I understand you guys just partnered with Breeze. Is that right?
Yeah. So we've been working with. It's like I think you had Adam Curry on your show previously, and so we've been
Yep,
working with
Adam was
Adam
on.
Curry and Dave Jones. Yeah, they were kind of forefronting this podcasting 2.0. What's it called? Like just a movement, and so they're really trying to bring the Lightning Network and Bitcoin into the existing podcasting infrastructure. And what that is enabling is the content creators to really connect with their audience in a new way and enable a new monetization strategy that hasn't really
Right.
been possible before. And so instead of these podcast hosts having to run ads or tie to any particular platform, they're able to connect with their audience directly, and their audience are able to through apps like Breeze and Sphinx and some of these others. There's several podcasting apps that have Lightning Network enabled. Through those apps, the listeners are able to stream money, satoshis, which is fractions of a Bitcoin,
Right.
to these podcast hosts. And so what that really enables is it's a direct relationship between the listener and the content creator, or the consumer
Sure.
content creator. And so the creators are able to tailor what they're making much more to their listeners, rather than the advertisers, rather than the platform that is hosting their podcast. And these are things that really were never possible before, because when you think about doing this with like a Patreon or something, I mean, Patreon or Visa, whoever is running those payments, is taking a cut every step of the way. And if you were to run this through them, I mean, the podcast host would get very little from the amount that the listener is actually giving them. With this,
Right.
with using the Lightning Network and Bitcoin, it's strictly peer to peer. The payment that a listener is giving for listening to a podcast is they get the full thing. There's no cut. There's no one in the middle. It is from the listener to the creator directly. And the second, kind of really cool thing about this is almost like a streaming money, and where for every minute that someone's listening, the app is sending a fraction of a cent, or maybe it's 1 cent. It's whatever the user defines, whatever they feel the content is worth. And so it's really enables a more usage based payment method, rather than saying, hey, I'm going to give you $5 a month no matter how much I listen to it. It's really, hey, I listen to you for 3 hours a day. I listen to your podcast every day, whatever it is. And I'm going to give you that amount of value that I feel that listening, is worth. And so through these methods, it's really it has kind of like flipped the traditional way of thinking about a content creator and interacting with their listeners in a completely new way. And it allows the listeners to support their podcast directly without having a fraction taken out in the middle. And then it's also
Right.
just directly person to person.
Yeah. I'm wondering, obviously I get the Breeze model where it does go off of really performance based, for however many Satoshis you've assigned. And it's starting to ding through if you're listening to Curry's podcast for 15 minutes or, a 2-hour podcast. And I like that model, but I'm wondering, when you look at the amount of creators that, both from a podcasting standpoint, and then of course Apple just recently just dropped their whole model on subscription, which is going to be very unique on how that might play into this. But if you look at the other side, for us, this is a good example. Our own show, we of course put TechPath on the podcast channel, so it goes over to Spotify, iTunes, the typical outlets for podcasts. And then we have a ton of audience that view us right here on YouTube, which is a pretty typical way to get it. We've talked about doing some things with our own, and I'm wondering, with more and more creators, and this is something I've watched for many years because we study media and just how it's been an evolution of it, of where media is going. And I've seen some creators on YouTube start to move over to things like Patreon and/or working into platforms that are much like Breeze, but not necessarily Breeze, where they're trying to eliminate that, that platform intermediary. Do you see the potential here to maybe just leverage up micropayments? So an example would be if we said, hey, support the show TechPath here, drop to this link, you go over here, you'd be able to, rather than pay in Bitcoin, you're supporting the show in Bitcoin, but you're doing it through Satoshi level micropayments. Do you see that as a potential kind of hybrid or fork of what potentially could happen in these micropayment potential scenarios?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. And I think I think the reason for the shift into things like Patreon or going to this micropayments setup is, content creators don't want to have to be, censored by their advertisers. They don't want to,
Right.
they don't want to be completely tied to advertisers. And when you're able to, go directly to your consumers, I think that enables you more freedom as a creator to do what you want to do. And then it also, lets you get that relationship, establish that relationship with your listeners much easier. And so I think that there's going to be that shift to Patreon. And then as we move along, I think that especially right now with how how popular just the general cryptocurrency markets have been and a lot of the uptick in interest, I think that will be the necessary next phase, is to move into more of these micropayment giving, scenarios where it's strictly peer to peer, and then you could also, really, instead of doing $5 a month, it's completely it's consumption based.
Right, yeah, just build it off of the of course, that would require app-enabled integration where your podcasts. I mean, we had Anita Posh on the show just here recently. She said she's using the platform on Breeze, and it's pretty fascinating. I'm just wondering when the potential YouTube community creators would eventually have something like that would be potential to basically interface with their audience that could kind of eliminate the intermediary that you have typically with Patreon or any of the others that are out there, including places like PayPal and all those that Stripe. I mean, you just go down the list. Let's talk about the Lightning Network for a second, because I'm not sure a lot of people really understand what Lightning is. Explain how it rides on the Bitcoin or on the blockchain, how it can be utilized as a potential gateway for payment.
Yeah, sure. So the Lightning Network is a layer 2 scaling solution to the Bitcoin protocol. And to first understand why the Lightning Network exists, you kind of need to step back and look at some of the properties of the Bitcoin blockchain, or the base layer as it's commonly referred to. For Bitcoin to be, truly peer-to-peer and as secure as it is, there's a few trade-offs that have to happen, and those trade-offs generally manifest themselves in the amount of transactions it can put, like, in a given time, like your transaction times and number of transactions per second, that kind of thing, and then also in the fees charged per transaction. And so during these really high transaction times where there's a lot of people trying to get transactions in, you could be waiting a long time for your transaction to be confirmed, and you could also be paying a large fee on the transaction. So sending something like $5 could get really cumbersome, where you might be paying $5 in fees for the $5 transaction. And so the Lightning Network was created to sort of solve these issues. And what the Lightning Network is it's a network of nodes in a peer-to-peer network on top of Bitcoin that is connected by what's called payment channels. And these payment channels are created by sending one on-chain transaction, that base layer. But then once that one transaction is created to create this payment channel, you can do virtually infinite amount of transactions across that channel instantly and for free or for very little fees. So what this creates is it's almost like a graph of nodes in this peer-to-peer network, where you can send through these payment channels and send to anyone on the network for very little money and instantly. And so it allows us to keep a lot of those same properties of Bitcoin and it's strictly like peer-to-peer, all of its securities and scarcity that it makes it so great, but it allows us to use it in much more of the maybe traditional ways that we think of, like a Visa or a Venmo or something, where we're sending it instantly and we don't have to wait on confirmation times, things like that. Yeah. And so this has really allowed us to scale Bitcoin to what we expect it to be in a global payment system, or even incorporating it into the internet that we use today. The podcasting thing is a great example of, if we didn't have the Lightning Network, this whole micropayments thing probably wouldn't exist. It doesn't really make sense to pay $5 for a 3-cent transaction to support a podcast. So this really enables us to use Bitcoin in the internet as it exists today, and like in a more native way, in a more seamless way, while still maintaining a lot of those values that make Bitcoin, what it is.
So this kind of goes into a couple of things I want to dive into on the payment, mechanism itself, both from a user standpoint, but also from a future standpoint, as we see cryptocurrency and blockchain technology being adopted, because it is ramping very quickly. I would say, when you look at the numbers and the trends, we're watching the leaps we've taken in the last just 18 months has been astounding. Why do you think we haven't seen more companies really moving into the Lightning Network, which enables these fractional opportunities for payment at much lower rates, if any? It would seem like it would really kind of open up Bitcoin as a true transaction vehicle, as a payment device, which has been one of the knocks on Bitcoin for a long time. Most people, we've had Mike Saylor on this show, he's talked about this more as a stored value. A lot of people now are looking at ways to start accepting Bitcoin, but mostly for larger ticket items. I could see this
Hmm.
really get into like the restaurant space when you need to buy a cup of coffee, those kind of things. You know, the fractional type purchases, which really get dinged hard on these transaction fees. This could eliminate all of that. Why wouldn't all the merchant companies be jumping all over this?
Yeah, yeah. So there's a couple different answers to that. One is it's been a little bit difficult to get onto the network. There's like a set of technical requirements, which is
Right.
one of the things that we're trying to solve here is to make it much easier, where it's kind of a couple clicks and you're on the network. So it's historically been a little bit difficult in terms of technical requirements, which is getting easier and easier, both through us and a lot of other companies in the space. So it's getting easier to do that. And then there's also, like you mentioned, of like the store of value thing. Some people, think that Bitcoin's like only a store of value. Why would I buy a cup of coffee with it? And
Right.
I'm of the opinion that it can kind of solve both of those use cases, right? It can still be
Hmm.
the store of value, but you can still, use it to transact in a very, a few cents or $5 cup of coffee thing. I don't think that one defeats the other. And
Hmm.
so I think that with that, and then when you think about Bitcoin and the Lightning Network, I think it's very comparable to the early days of the internet, where like maybe we're at broadband, like maybe even Netscape like arenas, and so
Yeah.
we're just like we're building the next internet, right? And so
Yeah.
it's just kind of the natural evolution of how this is going to be built out, and we're at that time where it's not like today where you can just get your email on your phone. We're not quite there yet, but we're building it up to that area. And so that's what Voltage is trying to solve, is to make it easier, so a lot of these companies are starting to enable it into their apps and really bring Bitcoin into this next phase, which is using it in more of in an internet native way.
Yeah. Well, and I think, when you look at, because this is something that comes up on our show a lot with, whether you're in the HODL camp or you're in the camp of, let's trade. There are
Hmm.
some very interesting aspects to this, because if you look at Bitcoin, if you truly are in on cryptocurrency as the future of the monetary value system, then the likelihood is that it is going to be the vehicle for transacting at some point,
Hmm.
whether it's in the next 5 years or the next decade. The digital transaction is going to be a real thing. So
Hmm.
both from a legislative front, because of just the taxing positions that we're dealing with cryptocurrency, I think all of that's going to get solved, and eventually,
Hmm.
like what you said, we are in the very, very nascent stage of where all of this is going. Because of that, and because of the opportunity that sets in front of us right now. If you looked at a few industries and said, these are the ones that most likely will get disrupted first with digital currency as the vehicle, and whether it's the Lightning Network or other protocols that start to build up on top of that, what industries do you think are going to come to the plate first?
Hmm. Yeah, I think that, I mean, the ones that we kind of see already today are going to continue to grow and really disrupt. And the ones that we see a lot of right now are, number one, gaming. We
Yeah.
have a gaming company called Thunder Games, which is a company of ours, and they when you're playing the game, you can essentially collect like these little tokens in the game, which is pretty standard for just games across the board.
Hmm.
But the difference is as you collect those games, that's real money that you're collecting,
Yeah.
and then you can
Yeah.
cash out those winnings of your game into your own wallet. And so that really changes the value proposition of like playing these games, instead of earning
Big
these
time.
like kind of fake coins that really
Hmm.
like don't matter for anything. You're actually earning real money, and the gaming company can you can withdraw those into your own wallet. And so I think that that's a big space that is going to be disrupted, is gaming, because you can really change the incentive on what it means to play the games and interact with them.
Yeah.
So gaming is definitely one. Podcasting, like we've already talked about, and then I think just the whole streaming services. So more
Hmm.
generally speaking, of like video, audio, whatever it is, you can take those same methods that Adam has done in the podcasting space, and apply. You could apply it to YouTube. You could apply it to Netflix. You could apply it to any of these things that are streaming, and you can switch it from a subscription base to a strictly consumption base. And I think that
Right.
really anything that is using streaming services like that will really start adopting this. And when you think about Netflix, okay, you pay amount of money per month for Netflix. Whether you're use it or not, you're paying that amount of money. Maybe at the beginning of the coronavirus, maybe people were watching more Netflix than they had previously. You're on vacation for a couple weeks, like you're probably not going to watch Netflix very much. So instead of paying a set amount every month, you can just, okay, I'm watching, an hour right now, and you pay for the hour, and then, you don't pay when you're not watching it. And so it really
Sure.
just changes the game on like how to pay for the services that you use, which has historically not really been possible. With credit cards, it doesn't make sense to run your credit card for 3 cents every hour. Like it just doesn't make sense, which is why the subscription model has really been created. And so this really changes the game on any kind of streaming service to incorporate into these streaming payments and to make it a more of a consumption model.
Yeah, for sure. I think when you look at gaming, because gaming is one that I
Mhm.
think is ripe for
Yeah.
integrating this kind of technology. I'm wondering why someone like a Twitch or even an EA Sports or many of the bigger gaming companies, even if you look at what's happening with Fortnite and all of what they're trying to do, especially around the challenge they're dealing with in terms of Apple and kind of that gatekeeper scenario that we're dealing with. This would
Hmm.
seem to be a channel for those kinds of companies to really kind of go in that direction. Do you see anybody other? I know there's a handful, but do you see any of the majors starting to really explore this potential opportunity going in a direction like this?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, like me, I haven't been maybe so in tune to the gaming space to know about that, but I've just kind of heard through grapevines that yes, I think that a lot of these people are like at least exploring the opportunities because, like you said, I think it's the prime. Like it makes too much sense to not go into this, right? So I
Right.
think that there's a lot of people that are starting to look into it and explore them. I think that's not even, I think outside of gaming, there's a lot of companies that are looking into these technologies that maybe haven't said it. There's kind of behind closed doors. They're just experimenting with it, seeing what they can do, and seeing how they can incorporate it into their products that they've had, that
Yeah.
they already have. And so I think that there's a lot of people that are exploring these opportunities, gaming and otherwise. And I don't, whether they've said it or not, I think that there's a lot of interest and a lot of people researching how they can use this in their products and how they can use it to reach just a whole new audience.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Let's jump into the BTC Pay concept that you guys have launched. For companies who are out there right now, maybe they're looking at ways to add in Bitcoin or cryptocurrency payments into the system. Over the past few years, BitPay has really kind of been the only solution or only real robust solution out there to utilize. With BTC Pay servers that you guys are implementing, essentially you kind of take the node development out of it, meaning you don't have to manage your own node, any of that kind of process. Explain to me the process that a business would go through today to jump into BTC Pay.
Yeah, sure. So, I guess to take a step back a little bit, so BTC Pay Server is an open source project created by some people in the community, really to allow you to use almost get like the same features of a BitPay, but to get
Hmm.
it in a completely like self sovereign way where you don't have to they don't have to store your currency for you. It's all directly to you, and then there's
Right.
no transaction fees with it as well. So it's directly to you. They don't take a cut. There's nothing like that. And so we have added that to our platform we host BTC Pay Server on behalf of our customers to allow
Hmm.
them to accept Bitcoin in their stores or their apps.
Right.
And we have done it when we do it for just like a small hosting fee, and then it's again no transaction or per transaction fee or cut out of it. So when businesses want to come and accept Bitcoin in their stores, they can sign up for our platform and just create a BTC Pay Server account, and then you just get an account created and a wallet created on our BTC Pay Server instance, and then their BTC Pay Server has a lot of integrations into other platforms like WooCommerce and several e-commerce plugin systems and whatnot. And so it makes it really, really easy to start accepting Bitcoin for your business, whether it's donations or a checkout page, whatever it is.
Right.
It makes it really easy to start accepting those, and it's all directly to you. There's no kind of middleman in between
Hmm.
that is taking a cut of it. And it has made it very, very easy to start accepting Bitcoin into your applications or your stores. Especially, this has been we've seen a lot of interest in like like restaurants and things like you talk about, where
Right.
people are wanting to accept Bitcoin, just for a cup of coffee or whatever it is. BTC Pay server is great for that and e-commerce as well. And so it's been a really good solution so far, and it's got a lot of backing in the community. There's a lot of people that are supporting it, and it's been a great tool to get people on board. And for our offering, we take on kind of that burden, like I talked about, of the upgrades and the server maintenance. So if
Mhm.
you aren't technical, you don't really have to worry about it. You can just come and create an account, and we'll handle all of the backups and making sure that your store is online and things like that. So we really try and enable these stores to accept Bitcoin without all of the hassle of, like, okay, how do I run a server? What happens if
Mhm.
this thing goes offline? What am I going to do, kind of thing. So we've been trying to really make it easy for these companies to start using Bitcoin, quickly and when without worry.
Yeah. Well, I went through the process to kind of, prep for this interview. I wanted to kind of
Hmm.
understand how BTC Pay would really work for a business. Went through the whole process. It's very detailed in terms of, your key transfers, all of the data essentially that you've got to keep track of to basically move wallet to wallet, like what you guys are doing with this. And I like the somewhat seamless methodology. Do you see something coming in the future to where you would generate just a little HTML code off of it, so someone could take that server in essence and tie it just over here to a button, like what BitPay is doing for transactions? Any potential development in that direction?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think that both us as Voltage and then the BTC Pay Server project in general is always looking to make it easier to use. Whether it's just the sign up flow or incorporating it into your apps or
Right.
whatever it is. We're definitely always looking to improve and add more functionality. And so, yes, like there's definitely, if anyone has specific use cases, we always love to hear those so we can, prioritize those appropriately. But we're always looking at ways to make this, easier and easier, to where it's, one click of a button is what we strive for in everything. So we're trying to get there in everything that we do.
Yeah. Graham, when you look at the infrastructure that is kind of set forth in what Bitcoin is kind of laid out, and then all of the projects coming on to the marketplace, we've had Algorand on, and I've looked at their, tech and kind of what their project is all about, very advanced. Obviously, we see a lot of movement over here in Ethereum right now as they're developing, ETH2.
Hmm.
Where do you see the potential going with a lot of these protocols, and do you think that we're going to see at some point kind of a thinning of the herd in these technologies, or do you see that there's just so many variations and so many use cases scenarios that this is going to always be a very convoluted space?
No, I definitely think that we will see some thinning as we go. I think that, like we kind of talk about in the crypto community, is that like these bull runs where prices are going crazy just makes it kind of a wild west, so to speak, of everything that's going on. But I definitely think that there will be some thinning and consolidation happening. And I think
Mhm.
that historically people have it's been kind of the knock on Bitcoin that you can't do the things that are enabled on Ethereum or these other projects. But really, that's where the Lightning Network and some other things are
Exactly.
building towards. And so I think when you think about all of these things that people are creating specific coins for, or Ethereum is trying to focus on, it's of my opinion that all of these things can really be applied on Bitcoin on top of the Lightning Network or some other projects. And so I think that it's just a matter of time, where I think that the development process of the Bitcoin community has always been move very slow and be very sure of what we're building, because I mean this is a global financial network that has billions and billions of dollars on it. Like, we're not going to kind of be reckless in how we're building. And so for that reason, the development has been a little slow, but I think that's how it should be. And so there's these other projects that are like, well, it's not on Bitcoin yet, so I'm going to go build it. And like, sure, that's fine for now, but eventually all of these things are going to be on Bitcoin. And it's
Sure.
just a matter of time for us to, the community to go and build them and develop it. So I think over time there will definitely be a thinning where a lot of these projects will be just kind of go away, because their value proposition or what they're building will just be enabled on one of these major currencies like Ethereum or Bitcoin. And like I mentioned, I think most of these things can be built on Bitcoin. It's just a matter of time.
The future is in the Bitcoin.
Yep.
Is basically what you're saying is just, hang with the old OG and you're going to be fine. Um,
Yes.
I like that. Graham Krizek, it's great to have you on over from Voltage. I love what you guys are doing. Keep it up over there. I can't wait to see how this evolution for podcasting goes. I've been a podcaster for many years, and I'm always fascinated at one, the distribution effect that it has. But as you guys have now solved, it never really had a monetization model that you could really utilize. And now there seems to be one developing. And with our friend Mr. Curry, I think he's onto something really cool. So thanks again for all your work, and good luck out there at Voltage.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Excellent. You guys are tuning in maybe over on the podcast right now. We don't have Breeze app enabled yet, but we probably need to do that. And of course, if you want to leave a rating, do so. If you're checking us out on iTunes or Spotify, make sure also, if you have an idea for a show, you can send us a note to producer@reverendnetworks.com. Also, you can hit me up on Twitter, just @Paul Barron. That's the best way to reach me. Or you can also hit us the show up, which is just @TechPath TV. By the way, we have a TikTok channel, which is starting to get some content on it for you guys. So if you are a TikToker out there and you want to kind of check out some of the content over there as we start to put this material out there, that's another place you can find us. Otherwise, we'll catch you back right here on YouTube. Make sure and subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications for the next content coming live. We got a lot coming at you, including some pretty big topics around BYD, Tesla, and some of the movement that's happening in the EV space. So stay tuned very soon here on TechPath. We'll catch you soon right here.